All right, everybody, welcome back. We are live and we are on the air. We are on the internet and we are here for another CoCo Talk. How are we, everybody? And welcome. We've got a full panel. We've got another bevy of babes and beauties with us. You know, the great thing about this show is not only is there a great amount of technical content, but there's no shortage of eye candy either. So it appeals to a wide range of viewers. So who do we have here? I'm just going to read everybody off from left to right, top to bottom. So with us from Australia is Nick Marentes. G'day, Nick.
G'day, everyone.
How are you? We have with us Rick Adams, keynote speaker, video game developer, Raspberry Pi aficionado, and just all-around decent human being. How are you, Rick Adams?
Hello.
Bill Noble with his freshly updated profile picture. How are you, Bill?
I'm doing great.
From Canada, eh? We have with us from the Wild West, Barry Nelson, just recently off of his photo shoot where he captured Wyatt Earp or Billy the Kid or one of those guys there. Good to see you, Barry Nelson.
Hey, and that's more of the Wild East since I'm in Florida, but hey.
Okay. Steve Noskowitz is with us today. How are you, Steve?
I think I'm here. Do you hear me?
I hear you. Yep. Yes, we hear you. And I'm going to try to butcher your name, but it's... Welcome, Steve. How are you? Welcome. And Richard Lorbieski. Did I butcher your name good enough, Richard? I didn't hear him. Okay. From Canada, Curtis Boyle. How's it going, eh?
Hello, everyone.
My partner in crime and gaming buddy, David Ladd, a.k.a. CoCoTALK, a.k.a. Drencor, is with us. Welcome, Drencor.
Thank you, Steve, and hello, everyone.
The very handsome and debonair John Strong of Strongware Products with video games, 3D printed cases, and cures for what ail you is with us here. John Strong. Oh, we have Coconut Neil Blanchard here. I just noticed that beautiful coconut there. Hey, Neil. How are you, Neil?
Hey, great. Doing great. Nice to be here.
Neil Blanchard of the CoCo Crew podcast is with us, and hopefully he'll stay on because Neil has been on here with us once or twice for a minute at a time. So
yeah, I'm going to be here listening, but I'm outside doing some landscaping, taking advantage of this only nice day we have this weekend. So
beautiful. We're very happy to have you. And then from the UK, Richard Cavell is with us as well. How are you, Richard?
Hello, everyone. How you doing?
All right, we got a great panel, and we've just eaten up 18 minutes of introductions here, so we're doing good. So I do have some things I want to talk about, but I figured since we have some people with us here in the panel, if anybody has anything they want to mention, just so you know, Nick, I was planning on bringing up your blog post, and if you want to go ahead and narrate that yourself, you're more than welcome to. But you are on my agenda to discuss today, Nick, along with a few other things. But anybody got anything that they want to talk about today before we get into some of my things I've already got queued up to discuss?
Just to let you know, I'm basically listening today.
All right.
Busy coding, so.
All right. Well, we're happy to have you. Well, the primary topic that
One thing for me, Steve.
Yeah, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, you can go ahead and knock me off and take me off the list. Unless anybody has any specific questions in the future, well, you can always email me and I can try to get on here. But I don't think I have anything to add to the group, so I'll let you guys go and have a lot of fun.
All right, Steve. It was good to see you. Good talking to you.
Thanks. Glad to see everybody's still here and fighting for the CoCo.
Oh, yeah. We're fighting a good fight. Take care, Steve.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All right, so bye-bye, Steve. All right, so yeah, the one thing I do want to show off today, this is something that David and I were talking about before, and unfortunately we're not going to be able to show it off as well as I would have liked, but we talked about last week about Drivewire, and it would be kind of good to show off Drivewire, and it's something I've never used before, something that I think a few of us have not used. There's probably more than 2 people on the planet who possibly know what Drivewire is but have never used it. So we will do a live DriveWire demonstration. Now the challenge I ran into, and I'm going to switch my camera to a full camera real quick, is that, you know, I actually ordered the DriveWire cable. This is the DriveWire cable that I ordered from Cloud9. And so part of what, you know, if you want to run DriveWire in a real CoCo, part of what you get is a serial cable. That's also known as a DB9. There are many names for this cable here. Serial cable, RS-232, DB9. This is a traditional PC style 9-pin DIN connection. The other end of this cable has got the DIN connection that goes to your serial port on your color computer. So I ordered this cable. Now this version of to do DriveWire over serial, well, what do you need? Well, you need to have a serial port on your computer. How many modern computers have serial ports on them? Not that many anymore, right? So what I actually have, and I have had this for a long time, this is a serial port to USB adapter, RS-232. So this will let you run like a serial port on your laptop, and I have to do this a lot for network configurations and stuff like that. And this has worked well in the past, but I think the last time this worked was probably when I was running Windows 8, because I just checked the website, and Windows 10 is not supported on this device. So I can't run DriveWire over serial. So I can't demonstrate that today, but we will demonstrate that in the future. Maybe we'll just do an individual video for that. But what we will do today is we will demonstrate running DriveWire on a PC, and we will connect VCC to DriveWire. And so I'll tell you, and so you might be saying to yourself, possibly too, well, what the hell is DriveWire? And I'll tell you how much I know about DriveWire, which is not a lot, but it is software you can run on a computer. And when I say computer, it could be a Windows PC, it could be a Mac, it could be Linux, it could be a Raspberry Pi. And it acts as a server to your color computer. You can mount disk images on the DriveWire server, mount those and send them to your CoCo either over a serial cable or over the network. You can print to it, so you can print to a printer that's on your computer over DriveWire. It supports networking and TCP/IP. So Brett Gordon made a game, Global Thermonuclear War, that uses IRC clients and actually has multiplayer networking over DriveWire. So there is a lot of things you can do with DriveWire. I've never used it, and we're going to just scratch the surface of it today. So on that introduction, does anybody else have 2 or 3 cents they want to add to what is DriveWire and what we can do with DriveWire?
Well, the nice thing I like about DriveWire is the fact that you can actually back up everything very quickly and very easily.
And give me an example of that when you say backup, because you're storing things on your PC and not on your CoCo?
Yes, actually I transfer my actual hard drive image and most of my RS-DOS files, and I actually have a single folder on my DriveWire server that actually stores everything as an actual backup system.
Okay. So are you running it directly from your DriveWire? Are you running it somewhere else and then backing it up to DriveWire? How does it become a backup? And you have 2, I'm assuming you've got 2 copies of it, right?
Yes. Yeah, I use my live copy on the CoCo 3 normally, as I would do it, but every once in a while I take that entire image and I back it up into the DriveWire server as a separate image for storage-wise.
Okay, you're talking about backing up like an entire hard drive image or a floppy drive image?
Both, yes.
Okay. Are there built-in commands to back up an entire... are you doing it like through the normal quote-unquote operating system commands, or are there actual like bulk copy and image commands you can use that are exclusive to DriveWire?
I'm actually doing it using actual OS or RS-DOS commands to actually do it, which is basically straight copies. Okay,
straight copies. So, because when I hear image and backup, I'm thinking of something that's working on a higher level than the operating system or a more, block level. So you're just talking about just treating it like a virtual hard drive or a virtual floppy disk that lives on your PC, and you're copying it from your CoCo to the DriveWire virtual copy as well.
Yes.
Okay, that's cool. Some of the things that I'm looking forward to trying with DriveWire in the future is when I order my Raspberry Pi CoCo. One of the things that Ron Klein had mentioned is that you could set up your Raspberry Pi to point to the IP address of whatever computer is running DriveWire, and then you can run software from DriveWire to your Raspberry Pi as well. So there seems like there's a lot of potential with what we can do with DriveWire, so now David helped me test this. I had it working once and we'll have it working again, but what I want to show you guys real quick is where to get DriveWire. So I need to change my software here for just a second to show my computer screen. And I need to find out where that is right now. So here's my computer screen, and here is DriveWire, I think. And maybe I went one folder too deep, and I got that was where the download link was at. And by the way, there's a link to this on my webpage, and there's a link to this in the description to this video, right? So, so the DriveWire website is where you're going to download this from, and I guess right now the current version of DriveWire is DriveWire 4. And you're going to download DriveWire, and you're going to run DriveWire on your computer, which I have done right now. So the next thing I'm going to do, David, you're still here, right?
Yep.
Okay. So the next thing that I want to do now is I want to go to my DriveWire folder that's on my desktop. I think I just stuck DriveWire on my desktop, right? And so we're going to run the file that's called drivewire.ue.exe, which is the Windows version of this. There are some jar versions. So the jar versions are if you're running the Java version of this, if you're not on Windows. Is that what those are for?
Well, the DW4 UI.exe actually launches the Java runtime and loads the jar file for you.
Okay.
There's also a DW4 UI.command, which is meant for Mac users. And then there's should be also one with a .sh for the Linux users.
Okay, which is basically like a shell script.
Yes.
Okay. So we're looking at the Windows GUI right now. I'm sorry, Barry, you saying something?
Yeah, I was just going to interject real quick. For Mac users, there are issues with DriveWire 4.3.3, which is the current version, running on Mac. What I have found is that in order to get reliable operation on Macintosh, DriveWire 4.3.2, which is one version of that.
Barry, you got some really bad breakups on us right now. It sounds like you're underwater in a tunnel being dragged inside a lead box. But I think I made out what you're saying, that the current version of 4.3.3 is having an issue on the Mac, and you need to use the previous build of 4.2.3 or 4.3.2, something like that. Yeah. I don't know if you're on Wi-Fi or if you're on the road, but yeah, I can't make you out. But see what you can do to remedy that and then chime back in. Now, David, help me out here, because I've got the program already up and running. Take me through, who the heck is click-clocking right now? Take me through what I got to do to set this up now again, so if this was a new install.
Okay, so basically you'd click on the configuration box at the top.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then you would go over to your simple wizard.
Right. Okay.
And then basically you would choose the options that you would want for your particular setup.
Okay, pause right there. Pause that thought. So I just want to try to annotate this as we're talking about it. So you're going to want to go to the DriveWire download that I have in the description of this video. It's also on my website. You want to extract that. You want to run the DriveWire UI, which is this front-end user interface. And then we're going to go to this config menu, and we're going to start the easy config wizard here. And this is how we are going to set up DriveWire. And then you have some questions here. It says, well, what do you want to connect DriveWire to? CoCo 1, CoCo 2, CoCo 3. Now, why do we have 3 different versions of CoCo options here? I would assume because their serial ports communicate at different speeds?
Yes, the CoCo 1 without the upgraded op amp can only handle 38,400 BPS.
Mm-hmm.
The CoCo 2 can only handle 57,600 BPS. And the CoCo 3 does 115,200 BPS.
Okay, so this is assuming you want to connect to a physical CoCo over a serial wire, which is something I do want to demonstrate, but I won't be able to do that today. Now, I notice there's an Atari and an Apple version here, too. So what can you do with an Atari? Okay, so the Libra 809 is how we put in a 6809 board into an Atari computer, and somebody converted Nitrous 9 or OS 9 to work on an Atari 8-bit system. Is that what that one would be for?
I'm assuming so. Actually, Boise would probably be able to answer that question more.
Yeah, that was Boise's project.
Okay. So that's
and
in there.
And as far as the Apple one, I can't answer that question. Obviously, the CoCo 3 FPGA is Barry's project, and then of course you have the emulator in the bottom right.
Right, which is what we're going to end up choosing. So the CoCo 3 FPGA, Bill Noble's with us. He's got some experience working on that platform. Are you using the? Oh no! That's you're using the Nano, the CoCo on a chip. I'm sorry.
The Nano, not
yeah,
the...
I'm sorry. I get confused, man. Sorry.
No problem.
Old age, it happens to us, man. So yeah.
So.
And then finally, because for today's demonstration, we're actually going to choose TCP/IP, which means we're going to run DriveWire over the network. So I'm going to choose that option. I'm going to choose this, and I'm going to hit Finish. So I have now told DriveWire that I want DriveWire to work as a network server and not as a serial cable-based server. All right. So now this is my DriveWire software. So another thing we're going to do now is now DriveWire supports, I believe, up to 255 disks, virtual disks. And then what I did is I went ahead and I mounted a disk here in Drive 0 for DriveWire. So we just do a right mouse click on the disk we want to mount.
Yep.
And hello, Paul Poco is here, or Paco. Paul Poco is here. How are you? We're going to say that we want to insert a disk. We would then browse to wherever we had a disk image stored. You have to have your disk images stored somewhere. We would then browse to that. And so now I have one disk image mounted in DriveWire. I could have theoretically up to 255 disks mounted in DriveWire, which, that's a couple of disks, I'd say, right?
Yeah, and I would like to make also an extra note because the fact that with HDB DOS, that's true. You only get the 256 with how this version works, but with the modified SDC DOS that Darren's got for the CoCo SDC, you can actually do 256 by 256. So each of those drive volumes that you have there, you can actually have 256 virtual drives in each of those 256 volumes.
Okay, and I have no idea how you'd even address that. How you refer to them? Is it like drive 0, 0 and 0, 1 and 0, 2?
Yeah, it's a drive, like for instance, it by default does the drive 2, pound 0, 2, and then drive 3 is the drive 3, pound 0, 3. So, but yeah, you could do that for all 4 of the drive numbers. So you could do drive 0, pound 0, 0, and you could do that with drive 1, pound 0, 1. So
the rabbit hole is getting deep. I don't think anybody's got 255 times 255 floppy images they need to have real-time access to. So I think that's probably overkill, but that's a great thing to know. So I'm going to go ahead and yeah, I am. I'm going to pull up VCC. Now we tested this earlier, so I've got VCC configured. But David, you're going to walk me through this again. And by the way, I have to give all the credit for this to David Ladd, because like most things in life, I have no friggin' idea what I'm doing. I just stumble through life, and sometimes I do things right on mistake. So this case here, David walked me through this, and I now have HBD DOS 1.4 with the Becker port running. But talk me through this process again. If somebody's got VCC set up and they've never connected VCC to DriveWire, what's the next thing we got to do, David?
Okay, normally you'd go to the cartridge selection at the top, and then normally the DriveWire module probably won't be by default loaded. So you'll need to find a MPI slot that is empty or has a device that you don't care to lose, and then you want to mount the one that would be HTTP DOS or Becker.dll in your directory.
Right, and so I'll walk through that. Let me just walk through my MPI right now. So in my MPI in slot 4, I've got my FD502 floppy controller. In slot 3, I've got a Cloud9 hard drive with real-time clock, or a hard drive with Cloud9 real-time clock. And then I have slot 2, I've got Orchestra 90. And then in slot 1 now I have this. But if this was not here in slot 1, you would go to Insert, this would take you to, it probably defaults to your VCC folder, and there's different DLL files, and the one we want to choose is the one that's called Becker.dll.
Yes.
Okay, and so Paul Poco is here, NML32 is here, and Jimmy Alvarez is here. Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here. So now that I've put that in there, and I've put in that DLL file in slot 1 of my multipack, there was something else you had me do, which was to go into my cartridge in my FD502 config as well.
Yeah, there's actually two things. The first one will be the FD502 config.
Okay.
Now, the first thing, depending on what you want, because there's well, actually, there's 4 ROMs that you can do. If you just want disk basic only emulation with no Nitrous OS9 or any of that stuff, you would choose the external ROM.
Mm-hmm.
Then down at the bottom part where it says Browse, where you have external disk image, you would go to Browse, and then you would select the appropriate ROM.
Can you be more vague with that? The appropriate ROM?
Yeah, just give me a moment. I'm trying to get there myself on my machine.
It's beginning to sound like setting up MAME. Pick the appropriate ROM with the right CRC for this version.
Yeah, well, thankfully VCC doesn't have that whole CRC crap, because it would be going crazy with this.
Yes.
Now, if you want the basic to start up with the high-speed poke by default, you would choose for the HDB DriveWire 3 BC3.ROM. If you want compatibility with CoCo 2 games, so you don't want the high-speed poke, then you do the HDB DW3 BCK.ROM.
BCK for like backwards compatibility?
No, it's just Becker. The BC3 is Becker CoCo 3.
Okay, BC3 is Becker port CoCo 3. BCK is just Becker port.
Right. And then when you select that, and then you hit OK, and then you would restart, or, well, you won't restart yet, but then you'll need to configure in the cartridge, go to the bottom, and under DriveWire server, this is where you would go to set the IP address of the DriveWire server and the server port that you had set when you was going through the easy setup wizard.
Okay, so back on the cartridge menu, the bottom option here says DriveWire server. Now, the port number is the default. Let me explain this particular IP address that came up here right now. This is what's known as my internal IP address, or my loopback address of 127.0.0.1. That would work here on this computer itself if I'm only talking to myself. If I want a computer outside of my PC to talk to my DriveWire, I would actually have to know what my actual IP address is. And there's a way you can do that. You can go to your open up a run command and then do like a CMD, which is your command prompt. And if you type in ipconfig, this will give you what your IP address is. Like, for example, my actual IP address at home is 10.0.0.99. That would be the IP address I would have to put in if, for example, I wanted to connect my Raspberry Pi to this DriveWire server. But since I'm having VCC that's running on the same computer talk to this one too, I could use this 127 address. And 127 basically means you're talking to yourself regardless of what your external IP address is. It's kind of an internal thing. This port number here was defaulted when I ran the wizard, so I didn't change the port. But for whatever reason, if you did need to change your port, I guess you could. And for those of you who understand networking and firewalls and TCP/IP, I guess you could theoretically set up DriveWire at home, open up this port on your FireWire, and connect to your DriveWire server from the road if you wanted to, right? Theoretically.
Yep.
I've actually done that, Steve.
Okay, Bill Noble has done that. You're a fart smeller. All right, so now that I've done that, and I've told VCC the IP address of my DriveWire server, which is myself, and I've changed my ROM to use a ROM on my floppy disk controller that's the Becker port ROM, and I installed the Becker port cartridge in my MPI. This is simple stuff. I don't know why we have to do this video. Then you just reset your CoCo. And if you're lucky and the planets are aligned and, you know, the high rectum colon sphincter has smiled upon you, then this thing boots up. And we are now in HDB DOS 1.4 Becker CoCo 2 version, which is not the CoCo 3 version. And so now my virtual color computer is DriveWire aware. How do I know that VCC is actually talking to my DriveWire server?
Just type dir and see if you get a directory off that disk image.
And then, okay, so if I type in dir, there's the trench. So I mounted a disk image that's called trench.disk. Okay, and so now if I run trench basic off of a disk image that is stored on my real computer, I now have a virtual color computer talking to DriveWire, talking to a virtual floppy disk, which is so much more simpler than just putting the virtual floppy disk directly in the virtual color computer. Would you not agree?
Yes.
And sarcasm.
And one note, Steve, actually, one note is actually to actually recognize for the connection itself is if you actually went to mounted your drive, you can actually look at the DriveWire window and it will actually change the LSN number and read and write to actually show you that there is communication.
Okay, LSN right now is 316, and the read says there's 68 reads to the disk.
Yeah, so if you go back to VCC window and type
and I type in dir now that I just see it changing to what does LSN stand for?
Logical sector
number.
Logical sector number. Ooh, I just got my vocabulary expanded today. Okay, so we're actually looking at a real-time readout on the DriveWire server that the disk is being accessed, it's being read, so on and so forth. So it's actually pretty cool. So the thing about DriveWire, I guess, now DriveWire remembered that this disk was mounted too. So let's just say, you know, you run an emulator a lot. I'm thinking of a hypothetical reason why people need to run out and get this and sign up for this today, right? Let's say you have an emulator you run all the time, and you got a bunch of floppies, and you're tired of mounting these floppies manually to your emulator every time you run it. You've got all these disks now just queued up in DriveWire. You just poof, you load up VCC or you load up your CoCo, and now you've got instant access to all these disks, and you don't have to now mount them and stuff. Now you can just change drives and type in drive 0, drive 1, drive up to 255, pull a dir, and pull up the files from each disk as you need them.
Yes. Now, because by default with HDB-DOS and the way that the default setting for DriveWire is it usually treats all 256 virtual drives in that one file. DriveWire does have up in the top a menu option to turn on for HDB-DOS drive translation, which will then, if you go to drive 1 or drive 2, it will then translate those to each individual drive slot.
Say that again and try to use smaller words for me.
Well, you see on the left or there where you have drive 0 and then you have your file name.
Yes.
Okay, and then you have drive 1 and then you don't have anything mounted. That's where it gets translated, where if you do drive 1 in HDB-DOS, it'll go to that drive 1 that's over on the left. But when the drive translation is not on, all 256 drives will actually get put into a single file. Kind of like how a hard drive would be if you're using HDB-DOS on like an IDE hard drive, or the same thing where it's just all 256 drives are from the start of the file all to the way to the end.
So you mean if I have 255 disks and I type in dir, I'm going to see the contents of all 255 disks as one long stream of content?
Not specifically. It's basically, think of you have track 0 through track 35, and then drive 1 starts at track 36 going to...
so it's kind of like making an array of multiple disks?
Right.
Like a floppy array, basically?
Pretty much.
Okay, so if you have 255 blank floppies in here and you don't turn on drive translations, it treats them as one big giant floppy. You could then theoretically format that as just one floppy and just load it with a spit ton of crap?
Well, if you went to drive 1, drive 2, drive 3, like I said, it's still treated as, each section is still treated like a standard floppy, but it's broken up into sections.
Okay.
Virtual.
So does that mean you have one drive disk file that covers your 256
Yes.
virtual disks versus one separate one like Steve currently has?
Right.
So the DSK file itself is not individual DSK files.
No. And that's why there's separate ROMs. There's 4 ROM images that come with VCC, and there's 2 of them that have an address offset to act like a hard drive. For that reason, because then at that point you've got OS 9 at the front, and then you got an offset for disk basic to have its 256 virtual drives all in that one file.
Okay.
Just like what you would with the Super IDE, or even what some people have been doing with the CoCo SDC, where you have the disk basic and all in one file too.
Okay, I still hear the words, and they don't all quite make sense to me, and that's okay. I mean, this is not going to be the only time we're going to do this. This was kind of an informal, live preview of Drivewire. We'll do something a little bit more formal, especially when I have a cable and I can demonstrate it on real hardware as well, and maybe we'll come up with some more examples. And for me, I'm a visual person. If I can't see it, I can't fully comprehend it. So everything you just said, we'll take that offline, and we'll work out some way to demonstrate that where I can not only understand it, but to relay it again to people who are simple like me. But no, that's cool though. So what I've done, and I'm happy with what I've just done, is I've mounted a single disc. Screw the 255 things. I am a simple person with simple needs. I am happy with a single floppy. I've mounted a single disc on my PC, and I've now DriveWire enabled that. Now, does DriveWire support multiple read access where I could have another machine reading the same disk at the same time? Is there any like file locking issues or anything like that?
No, unfortunately, that is something that is not recommended to do.
Okay, so if VCC is using disk 0, I should not have like a Raspberry Pi use the same disk 0. It should pull up a different image.
Well, see, the thing is that with DriveWire, it's technically only supposed to support one connection per instance. And this is going to get into the more complex section, which probably should be safe.
Because so far this has been kids stuff.
But there is a way to go in and set up what they call additional instances for DriveWire, which then adds a whole new layer of complexity.
Okay.
And I have to agree with David there. I've actually gone into it, and it's not a good idea unless you know what you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah. Just give you an idea, Steve. With running one DriveWire, I was running 4 emulators, 2 real CoCos, all from one launch of DriveWire.
You're an animal. You're an absolute animal, David. That should be your third nickname, is David the Animal Lad, to go along with your Drencores and Paco Otaktes and whatever else you're calling yourself today. No, it's cool stuff. It really is. Hey, and Grant Leedy is here. Hello. Grant says this is clear as mud.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's the best I can.
Actually, I'm smart enough to understand what I think you're saying. I'm just not fully enough to picture it in my mind and have an actual real world comprehension. But we're going to move on. We've talked enough about DriveWire for now. It's a great idea. It's still a great idea. I now think I've got like a 3 to 4% understanding of what we can do with DriveWire. But what I think is going to be cool is, I want to be able to do this with. One of the things I was thinking about doing with this is that because I'm doing my programming in basic series, I can have my disk image in DriveWire and then kind of quickly switch between running it in VCC, and when I want to pull it up on a real CoCo, I can just pull up that same disk image on my CoCo and switch back and forth. And then, and because right now what I'm having to do is I'm having to copy it to an SD card, stick it in my CoCo SDC, and manually swap files like we did in the days of the floppy. So this has now gotten rid of the sneaker net and has given us like a real network way of sharing files. So for me, that might be a cool little way to, tiptoe my way into the shallow end of DriveWire and then kind of take it from there. But I am a completely visual person. If I can't see it, I can't understand it, and it might as well not exist. So we will find ways to make this much more easier to see and understand. As the more I learn it, the more David can help me with it, we'll come up with more videos on this. But I want to thank you, David, for doing that. I want to thank everybody for bearing with me as we kind of tiptoed on that. Boyson Tech says, I have a question about DSK files. And what is your question, Boyson? It says, in the SDC can create one, but it's 153K. Can we create a larger one, and can it exceed 80 tracks? So I think, David, you were just talking about this today, or we've been talking about this offline as well. Does anybody want to take that question about creating larger formatted floppies with CoCo SDC?
Oh, Lord, that's going to be a...
Is that a big one?
I've not done it under RS-DOS, but OS9, yes, you can.
In OS9, you can. There's your answer. OS9 is the answer to most problems.
Exactly.
Now, if you're creating a SDF, there's a built-in option to create a double-sided 40-track SDF image built in. It's where you do a drive space, either 0, 1, comma, quote, the file name, quote, comma, new, and double plus, and that will create a 40-track double-sided image.
Okay, but my question would be is, can you exceed that? I'm Boyson Tech. I'm actually Richard Lorbieski.
Oh,
so.
okay.
Well, that's unfortunately from the disk command prompt itself. No. Actually, I've been working with Darren on a issue I just recently discovered with the CoCo SDC. But he provided me with a disk image that's a basic program that actually tells the CoCo SDC to create a SDF that's 80-track double-sided. But normally for your what you would call real disk images for true floppy disk mode of the FDC, the only time that you're going to be probably using something that large is in OS9, and at that point, if you're actually in OS9, then probably your better bet is if you're going to be using it like a hard drive, it's probably best to just use the hard drive mode of the CoCo SDC with the built-in SDC drivers in that case, unless you're doing some of the crazy stuff that I was doing, which found that bug.
Okay, on the hard drive drivers for the SDC, I didn't see those. Is that one of those hidden features?
Actually, it's not a hidden feature. If you go to nitrous9.org, I actually have, well, I did have it pulled up here. But if you go there...
I need to put that on my CoCo Links page.
Yeah, if you go there and go to Files, and then under Files, you go to Releases, the current version is 3.3.0, and you will see under there's either a NOS 96809 or a NOS 96309 level 2 for the CoCo 3, and you download one of those two, which matches your CPU, and then inside the zip there will be a disk image that specifically says CoCo SDC, and if you put that image on the SD card and mount it, it will be the HDD mode image for the CoCo SDC.
Got it.
Okay. I'm glad somebody understood everything he just said there. All you need to do is get an HDB and an XYZ and an IOU and an IUD.
Speaking of Nitrous 09, is there like two sites on there? Because one site has some content and then one has different content. I was kind of confused about that. One seemed to be an older site.
I don't really know. The only thing that I know, because the Nitrous 9 project on SourceForge, the nitrous9.org is hosted through the Nitrous 9 account on SourceForge. So those are one and the same, but if there's a separate Nitrous 9 website that you might be using, I don't know of one offhand myself.
Okay, if I find it, I'll send you the links. Yeah, the reason I was asking about all these questions is I'm trying to get Interbank Incident into one disk instead of just the 3 that I've been playing, and I just wanted one distribution. I was going to just have that so that I can just mount it and not worry about switching disks all the time.
Yeah, that's technically, since that's an OS9 level 1 game, you could create using I think there might be a level 1 version of the CoCo SDC hard drive image.
Yes.
And then basically you could copy all the files. If you've got like the OS9 utility from the Toolshed project, and you could desave the stuff, or you could actually physically mount them in the CoCo SDC, and one by one desave the files across between the separate disk images into the master bootable image that you're using. So you've got a few options you could do.
Yeah, you can even make a larger
simple
floppy image too, like an 80-track double-sided or something like that would probably fit the whole thing too. So
yeah, that's what I was trying to do.
And actually, one thing that I've done, Richard, is actually with Interbank Incident is actually make an actual image big enough to hold all the floppies, use the boot off of Interbank Incident, and actually built a disk image that had everything on it from all 3 disks.
Okay.
Oh, I was going to say, whoever reaches the finish line first with this project, I would like to get a copy of that disc, because that's a game I really want to review at some point in time as well. And it would be nice to not have to, not that it's the end of the world swapping floppies even on an SDC. Hey Glenn, glad to have you here. But yeah, David and I were just talking about this. We're kind of brainstorming on some things, and Interbank Incident is something I want to review. So
if I remember correctly, doesn't Interbank even have instructions on how to install it on a hard drive? Which would work
yes,
for
it
hard
does.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Same with Sierra games too. Like if you want all those for the CoCo 3, you can put all those onto single image. It has all of King's Quest 3 on 180-track disc or on the hard drive.
Roger that.
I just had one last question about Nitrous 09. There's a level 3. What's the difference between the level 2 and level 3?
Okay, that's actually
one level.
I should jump into here because I'm actually about to receive.
Can I interrupt real quick here? Now, is it actually Nitrous 09?
Yes, it is.
It's actually Nitrous 09. Is that answer been? Is that
Nitrous 9 for short because it's quicker off the tongue.
Nitrous 09. Yeah, that's just it's too many syllables there. Nitrous 09. Yes. Okay. Sorry about that. Sorry for the interruption.
No problem, Steve. But actually, answering Richard's question, actually recently, earlier this week, Alan DeCock got a hold of me, and he is actually sending me what his last version of the source code with Nitrous 9 level 3. Now, what the difference is between level 2 and level 3 is they've actually taken RBF and SCF and split them into their own separate tasks. So you actually gain back system memory from the operating system, because each time you access, say, /term or a window, it actually swaps out Nitrous 9 into its own task to handle that, and then comes back, and vice versa between RBF and SCF. So it basically is actually splitting Nitrous 9 into 3 system pages that actually run concurrently.
Yeah, one of the big issues with Nitrous 9 level 2 is that the system memory, which all the system stuff that Nitrous 9 itself uses, and RBF and SCF, which is your random block file manager for hard drives, disk drives, RAM drives, and SCF, which is your character manager, which is terminals, windows, BDG screens, etc., all use the same 64K workspace. So you would start running out of room pretty quickly. And what Alan did is he changed it so that RBF and SCF set up their own mini tasks of 16K each, and basically takes the manager and then any of the drivers like CC3 disk or your various hard drive drivers, etc., and puts them into those separate memory maps. And then anytime you're accessing those, it swaps those out so that you gain that 16K of system RAM back, which gives you more room for actual like processes, and you can run more tasks, etc. So it's basically a way to make it more memory efficient and allow you to run more than you could normally. It runs a little bit slower because of it, but not drastically. So
it's hardly noticeable for what I've gotten in the past.
Yeah, but I think at the current versions of Nitrous 9, like since we got off it back around the 201 days, I think are not quite compatible with the way Level 3 was set up. So I think Bill's working on kind of getting it retrofitted back in to work properly.
Yeah, it's the main thing is the actual clock module. When they split it into two separate processes, that's actually causing the issue.
Yeah.
So that's still a work in progress.
Oh yes.
Now, do you want the technical explanation, Steve? Or?
No,
I heavily into that one.
I was just in Barnes and Noble bookseller today in the mall next to Radio Shack, and I picked up Nitrous 09 for Dummies today. So,
can you send a copy to Nick?
You calling Nick a
dummy? Stabbing him, don't you?
I'm just waiting for his response now.
I'm writing a list.
He's writing a list. Don't spit up on your keyboard there, Curtis.
Talk about poking the dragon.
That one of the topics we have. Believe it or not, despite the unorganized fashion these shows continue to be in, I actually have a working list of topics that we will get to. And one of these days, this might be an actual organized show. But one of those topics is OS 9, and I think it was Bill Pierce that suggested this a while ago on the Facebook page that we need to demystify OS 9, and let's do an OS 9 talk at some point in time. And I think that would be a good thing to do. For me, it's something I'm interested in, and I think that we talked about this before. What we do with our CoCos is kind of unique to each other. For me, I just like to play games. So the fact there's an operating system is great, but I honestly don't really care. You know what I mean? Because most of the games I'm going to play don't need that operating system. And outside of playing games, I have no desire to even pretend to be productive with my color computer. But that's just me. I'm not wrong and I'm not right. I think Nitrous 9 is an interesting thing. It's an impressive thing. It's a powerful thing. But I think the term demystifying is a great term. And I think we have already mentioned today that there's so many caveats and variants and things to understand and do to run it. Once I understand it, I would love to show it off. And I know there are images out there that are already built that you could just mount this image and run it in VCC, and that's probably great. But yeah, I want to understand it a layer beneath the surface. Yeah, I know Barry's got one. I want to understand it a layer beneath the surface. I want to be able to demonstrate it somewhat intelligently and not have it be a 45-minute production. But I would like to be able to do that. We'll do an OS 9 for Dummies at some point in time. And then as new things come out, like this level 3 conversion, where basically I think one of the other questions that Richard had was, is that not compatible with the CoCo 3 yet? And I'm assuming the answer is no, it's not compatible yet, right? Because it's the adaptation is still in progress, right?
Yeah. Well, if you use the old clock driver that originally came with Nitrous 9, it actually does work.
You have to go back to like Nitrous 9 1.22 to 2.01 roughly.
Okay. So, is there such thing as a simple operating system? And was there ever a simple operating system? Maybe in the days of MS-DOS, the answer was yes. You know what I mean? You had Command Com on a floppy, and you pretty much had your operating system. You booted, and you could do what you could do with that floppy disk.
Until they added enhanced, like, extended memory and all that kind of items.
You know what I mean? Is Linux a simple operating system? Was Unix ever a simple operating system? I mean, in a sense, maybe it's got a kernel, it boots, you can boot it from a floppy, it's self-contained, it works, but it seems like Nitrous 9, is impressive as it is, it seems like it's a large, complex thing. It's an enigma wrapped in a riddle, so...
Well, it is. I mean, it's a multi-user, multitasking, real-time operating system, which is, getting pretty complex.
Yes, yeah, sorry, Rick, go ahead.
Sure. Unix is a user-friendly operating system. It's just very, very picky about who its friends are.
Also, Steve's out.
Yeah, nobody likes me.
Nitrous 9 probably needs to be compared to other multi-user, multitasking OSs, and ones that have advanced ability to load drivers and stuff. So that makes it fairly complex. But the thing is, a lot of what people are having trouble doing with Nitrous 9 is building a new boot, and you don't have to do that all the time. I pretty much get by with one boot set, and then I have a set of driver files I have merged, with all of the device drivers and device descriptors and everything, and I load those at runtime for those devices and unload them as I need them.
Now, when you say you do that, is that a process you have to do by running scripts or typing things in, or is it just something you've automated?
It's basically just load and unlink. It's simple commands. The only problem is that the bundles of... Oh, sorry, good.
I was saying I created the bundles of device drivers and device descriptors. So I create this bundle of, okay, I always use these things together. So I use the merge command, and I just merge them into one big file, so that I only have to load one thing. But other than that, it's pretty much a standard function of the OS. And then, when I want to load that set of devices and device drivers, I load whatever I called my file, and it loads all of that functionality up in one bundle. This saves memory, because otherwise each piece would otherwise take up 8K of memory, which would eat up our memory pretty quickly.
Yeah, that was my one point, is that the 8K MMU block is kind of a bit of a hindrance there. It's a bit too large.
Okay. All right, well, let's shift gears here in a second.
If you merge all the stuff into one file, then all that stuff fits in one block.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you keep it on the 8K boundary, yeah.
Okay, I want to shift gears now to get to some of the other things that I did want to talk about this evening. We've covered Drivewire. Maybe now's a good time, since we still have Nick before we put him to sleep, is that maybe we can talk about Nick's latest blog entry with his game in development. Are you up for talking about this, Nick, or do you want me just to read it off for you? I don't know. I don't want to put you on the spot.
I just woke up now, so...
I'm looking for my freaking... Yeah.
I have a topic to add, too.
Okay.
Let Rick go first. I was hoping Hugo would show up as well. So
no, Hugo said he wasn't going to make it. Go ahead, Rick.
Oh.
I was just thinking maybe it's time for a progress report on bomb threat.
Oh, yes. Well, hold on. Let me move the screen over. That would be great.
Let me see if I can share my screen. Call. Share screens. That looks promising.
That was psychedelic there for a moment when we had the screen and the screen and the screen.
Right. Share a window. Share that one. Let's start. Do you see anything?
I see you. There we go. Hold on. It's okay. Here we go.
There we see it.
There it is.
There we go.
I see IO error.
Okay. Okay. Not sure the sound will come through, but let's see.
You can share the sound too.
There's a plus sign to share sound too, I think.
Oh.
Share audio, I think.
I don't see that. So.
You've got to have the latest Skype.
Well, try clicking on the plus, the same plus you clicked on to share the window, and see if there's one to share audio.
Yeah, there's share system audio.
I'm going to hit the plus. Share system sound. That sounds
there you go.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So now let me get over to XRoar. And let's see what we got.
Roar.
Well, that's pretty loud.
Yeah, we
Can anybody hear me?
Earlier.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I hear people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's. Let me get focus in the window here. Okay. Keeps taking the focus out of the window. Oh, it's stuck. This is a bug. Every once in a while, when you start it up, it freezes.
Can we blame it on Nitrous 9?
I think we'll blame it on Drivewire.
Oh. Sure, well, Aaron's not here to defend himself.
Right. Okay, let's drive journal. Are we here? Yes. Okay. That's it. Got sound while it's not doing it.
We can hear it.
Yeah. So let's see. Are any of the bombs in the light?
I see one lit on the right-hand side, I think.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Here it goes.
I'm getting a lot of lag. I'm not seeing anything.
Oh dear. Might help if I didn't share sound.
No, we can hear it. Just my screen's not updating frequently.
I'm getting updates, but yeah.
Okay, now it is. Maybe because you weren't on the focus. Yeah. I like the sound effects.
So we've got bombs counting down, exploding.
Oh, I see that. They're animated. You can see the fuse is getting smaller on them. Pretty loud in my headphones, but yeah, it's cool.
The count is at the bottom. On the left, the number of bombs left multiplied by 10, and then in the middle, the number of crates multiplied by 10, and on the right, tractors. So anyway, it's now getting bored.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time hearing you over the game. The game volume is monopolizing your audio.
Right, I'm gonna shut this down because I think you got a good idea.
No, it looks really good. It sounds great too. So I think you have to stop sharing screens and stop sharing audio there. But yeah, no, wow, that looks really, really good right there. Okay, that looks really good. Yeah, you're back to normal. You're back. Okay. You've left the Matrix.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Now reach normalcy. Anything you can't deal with now is your own problem.
Yes. No, that's impressive. That's impressive. So
Rick, how far along do you think you are percentage-wise of completing the game?
Oh, I'd say 60, 70%.
Really?
Wow, that's
I don't have
progress.
scoring in. I got a bunch of bugs to fix. And I don't have 1 versus 2 player going. So, we're getting there. But yes, 60, 70%, I would say.
That's impressive. That is absolutely impressive. It's just, yeah, I don't even know what to say. I'm in awe, but it's really cool.
How long have I been doing this? About like a couple of months, right?
Yeah, it was just before CoCo Fest when you so here was the thing. We started this. We started CoCo Talk a couple of weeks before CoCo Fest. So we're on CoCo Talk number 9 right now. So maybe 10 weeks ago, 2.5 months ago, is when you started this. Yeah, because we took a week off for CoCo Fest. Yeah. And so the kind of unexpected byproduct of starting this Skype group was, I started the group as a convenient way for us to get this call together to do this weekly video talk. And what happens on this weekly video talk is like 0.0001% of what goes on behind the scenes in the actual Skype room where you guys are chatting back and forth 27 hours a day about things. And one of those things that happened was Rick getting introduced to emulators, which you mentioned in your keynote. He said, well, you should try the emulators and you should try this. And then you started developing this game that you lost the source code to. This was an unreleased game, and it's now 60% ready to be released in less than 3 months' time. So that's impressive. You're awesome. You're working on the hectic scale and pace of being back in the 80s when these things had to be cranked out every couple of months, right?
Right. Well, I'm not really working on it like a house of fire.
Yeah. Well, don't you have to get a new space heater at some point in time? So the first one will be the heater, the furnace. The next one will be the next car. So baby steps.
I was seeing some comments popping up about the audio, and I'd like to note that I expect that the Skype call is probably distorting the heck out of what audio there is. So
with his audio sharing, yeah, I'm sure we have a bunch of combined bandwidth going on here and all kinds of stuff, yeah. So it'd be good. It'd be good, to do like a
turn the volume way down. I mean, it was just chewing my ears right out of my head.
Yeah, mine too.
It wasn't very pleasant for me either. So
that's the add to the stress level to make it seem like a real bomb threat.
Grant says CoCo Talk helps me to learn more. It's like a mini CoCo Fest. It's a 2-hour CoCo Fest every week. That's cool, Rick. Thanks for sharing that. I'm hopefully at some point in time you can maybe throw up a YouTube video too that's got cleaner picture and sound, so we can all appreciate it without the lag that Skype is introducing.
Oh, good point.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. Nick, you ready for me to put you on the spot?
Do a video of an emulator, which is, I don't know how to do that yet, but I know it can be done.
It's leaking as soon as the end is done. The computer is off.
Nick Marentes, are you ready to be put on the spot so we can talk about Gun Star?
Yeah. Well, as everyone's seen, I've put up my second blog for my game Gun Star.
I've got it up on the screen right now.
Yeah, and this one I'm just talking about the graphics engine or the sprite engine or whatever you want to call it. And I go into a lot of the history behind the engine because it's not anything new. As the webpage shows, I created it back in 1984, and it's a very good engine for that type of game, and it makes the creation of sprites and overlays a little bit more manageable. The usual problem with sprites is, of course, having to store the background for each sprite and then draw the sprites, and then you have to then go back and restore the background, and it's all that management of trying to keep the background intact that just complicates things. And you can do it, but the thing is it gets to be very complicated and slows things down when you have a lot of sprites. And also I wanted something that didn't have the limitation whereby a sprite had to be a small square of say 8 by 8 or 16 by 16. You're always sort of restricted to smaller sizes for a sprite. I wanted something a bit bigger where I can just throw things on the screen and everything I throw up there can be effectively a sprite. And that's what this engine does. And the big overhead with this engine is the fact that I have to copy the background from an area of memory that manages the background into another area, and then I just draw whatever I want on that. I just literally scribble all over that screen. I can put explosions all over the screen. I can have sprites all over the screen. And then when it's time to prepare for the next screen, I don't have to restore anything. I don't have to worry about where the backgrounds have gone and all that. I just ignore it, and the routine will just go in and just go right over the whole lot. Just creates a brand new background, and then you just start again, just start drawing. So it eliminates that whole save and restore the background. And I'm hoping that the fact that it's saving that time, that it will make up for the fact that it has to do this big graphics copy on the screen. And one way that I mentioned that I do try to reduce that time is to just have to go to a lower resolution, obviously, because a high-res screen can take up 32K. And 32K, trying to blast that up onto copy that across, it's a bit too much for the color computer to do fast enough. So I've gone down a resolution. I did start at the higher resolution and then basically just started going down from there until to a point where I found a resolution that was low enough but not too low to look like a TRS-80 Model 1. And still offer 16 colors. Having said that, if I had used a TRS-80 Model 1 resolution, it would have been nice and quick. But it's not very high resolution anymore. It just doesn't look so good. So the mode I've used ends up being a mode, the same mode I used back in the day when I did Gatecrasher, which is 128 pixels by, in this case, 112 vertical. So I'm using the full vertical resolution that the color computer does. The maximum resolution that the color computer does is 225, and this resolution basically effectively scan doubles. It does every pixel is 2 scan lines, so hence it goes to 112 pixels, but it spans the same area that a full height 225 screen does. So I get full height, and the width is a bit narrower, about the same width as a normal 32 column VDG screen. So it's a little bit narrower, but it's full height, and that works out well for this game because it's a vertical scrolling shooter, and most of the arcade vertical scrolling shooters actually had the screen vertically oriented anyway. Right. So that worked out well. The resolution is lower, as you can see the little picture of the spaceship, but really we still do have 16 colors, so it still can look all right. And I thought it was not too bad. It's still passable. The fact that the lower res also makes the sprite look larger as well is a plus. A lot of games that use sprites on the color computer, the sprite is a small character, which is, it looks nice and high res, but it's only a small character. And I'm going for the big characters now, and the low resolution lets you cheat your way there rather than putting in more dots to make a larger sprite. I still have the same number of dots, but because the pixels are actually larger, the size of the sprites end up looking bigger. It looked all right on the tests I did, and I even met the heading up at the very top of the blog page, the spaceship that's up there. I styled it to match the graphics that I came up with on the CoCo, just so that it sort of is the high res equivalent. Much more high res. But that's all I've done so far. I've been playing around with the copying, because that is the most important part of the whole program. That if that doesn't work fast enough, then really the rest of the game is going to be not worth doing, because it'll be just a very slow vertical scrolling shooter. Right. So I've put in a lot of work in trying to get that copy routine to work, and of course I've had to go to stack blasting to get that speed. And the stack blasting is rather fast. Probably the fastest way to copy an area of memory from one point to another it's the fastest way to go. But it does come with its own problems, though, because I didn't explain this on the website because it gets a little bit more. I'd need another page to explain the whole stack blasting, and I might still do that. I don't know yet. But stack blasting tends to invert the copied image, so it's copying things left to right becomes right to left, and the order of the objects or the areas of memory that I'm copying gets inverted as well. Now, I could correct that within the copy routine. There's a few extra lines I could add in there per stack blast command to re-invert it back to normal, so that I effectively end up with a nice clean copy of whatever the graphics was. But then that slowed it down again, so I couldn't really afford to straighten the graphics up. So in effect, what's happening is I'm going to have the graphics in memory actually inverted to start with, and then do a stack blast, which will then re-invert it again, but in this case it'll re-invert it correctly.
Right, so you're basically taking a mirror image and then you're holding it up in front of the mirror and it looks correct.
Exactly, so I have to work with all the graphics backwards in essence.
Let me just interrupt you real quick. Because you're not an OS 9 person, when you speak technical, I understand everything you say, Nick.
That's just not right, man. That's just not right.
That's not right.
I should point out GraphDriv for screen scrolling and copying actually uses this exact same stack blasting technique in OS 9. So
it is the fastest way to copy.
There.
It would have to.
Yeah. Now, I've got a couple comments for Nick too, just in general. If any of you have been on Facebook and have seen Ed Snyder's pictures that he's done with that 16-color VGA adapter for the CoCo 1 and 2 that allows you to use extra colors, that's also a lower res one because they had to fit it in the original, 2K or whatever.
Let's see if I can find it. I've got Facebook queued up here too. I'll see if I can find it.
It's the exact same effect that Nick's using with using a lower res, but with the more colors makes it look a lot better than if you had a higher res with lower colors to make up the speed.
Here, I've got it on screen right now. Ed Snyder and his glorious monochromatic beauty here.
We'll see if you open there. He's got some color pictures too.
He's got some color ones,
Oh, you know what? I can't do it here. I can't. Oh, here we go. There we go. It just took a while. I think it's the OS 9 running, and that's slowing me down right now. So,
so in that case, it's OS 9 called Windows 10.
Windows 10. There we go. It's OS 10 that's running on my computer right now. There he is. There's Ed Snyder.
But if you open up some of the other messages further down, there's color pictures as well.
I'm gonna
using a lower res with 16 colors, and you can see how good that effect looks. You can see what Nick will be capable of doing in the game.
Right. I'm gonna pull it up in my web browser and switch my screen over here in just a second. That's an embedded browser in my software, and it's not as responsive. So give me 2 seconds. I'll pull it up on my real browser, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so let me switch screens again. Here we go. So this is Facebook running in Windows. We got all kinds of crap here. What else? Where are the rest of these pictures?
You have to click the view 41 more comments.
Yeah.
View 41 more comments. There we go. Okay, here we go. Well, there's
there it is. High res.
Okay, let's see. That looks great. I've never seen a CoCo look so clear before. Okay, view 41 more comments. Okay, so we're scrolling down. We're scrolling. Here we go. This is Neil Blanchard's logo here, the coconut. That looks really good. So it's a low resolution, higher color, and this is running on the CoCo VGA project for the CoCo 1 and 2, right? This is Brendan Dunaway's project. Let me make that full screen for as good as I can make that. That looks really good. That looks
and that's
really
the type
good.
of stuff Nick will be able to shoot for in his game. And if he does the larger sprites, like say a big boss ship or something, you could actually have something almost that size.
Yeah. Oh wow, like full screen even, right? No, that's very, very cool.
It's going to have a few other special effects as well. apart from the game actually being a vertical scrolling game where, you know, everything's scrolling down the screen, there will be actually the screen, the actual background, original copy of the background will be slightly wider than what you see on the screen. And the idea of that is because what I haven't mentioned yet is that I found that with the 6309 I can do a copy like the Stack Blast that is faster and doesn't invert. It actually is, it's great. So I'm completely sold on it. All these years that Curtis was trying to keep me away from it, I finally went into it, and you know, I don't know what he's talking about. It's a great CPU. He should learn to use it.
Yeah, right.
It's the best in the world.
Does the 6309 work on the metric system too? So.
And because it is faster, it allows me to do an extra thing, and that is because, as I said, the screen is actually wider. I'm going to be also scrolling left and right, so it'll be a vertical scroller whereby I can move left and right. In other words, when my ship moves to the left, the background can slowly move to the right to expose more of the
okay.
Yeah, so yeah, just to break it up. I mean, it's not really anything that, you know, specifically adds to the game, but I just thought it would be a cool effect.
It makes you feel like you're also in a slightly bigger world than is confined to the viewport of your screen.
That's all that was for.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Yeah. And I would just like to say, Nick, too. I mean, not only do we appreciate all your games too, but your blogs are very visually, very well formatted. You know, I mean, I just want to pull it up here again. The fact that you include these little animated screenshots and you have all these little breakout boxes and you've got all these little pictures and pointy arrows and stuff. I mean, it's just really cool because it's not super technical, but it's also visual. And because I'm a visual person, I appreciate the fact that you've broken things into different colors and you've color coded the text to match your image. You put a lot of time and energy too just to explain what you're doing, which isn't necessary, but for me it's definitely appreciated. I'm probably not alone with that, but thanks for doing that too.
That's all right. I've spent the last week just doing the blog, so I haven't been doing any coding, and now that the blog's done, I'm getting back to some more coding.
All right.
And one thing I will be doing in the next chapter is also talking about the sound. I have actually got the sound running. There's still some more things I want to throw in there, but I think if I can share the audio, I can actually demo some of the sound effects as a preview to all the next chapter in the blogs.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
I will try and just share the audio and then let me know how it goes. I don't know if it'll sound distorted or it will most probably be too loud, like Rick found. But what I've done is I've got my two-channel interrupt-driven sound. It's running as well with the copy routine at the moment, actually. And I've made a little test program whereby I press the numbers 1 to, I think it's 1 to 7 at the moment, and it fires off a sound effect. And that sound will happen while the copy's happening. In other words, nothing else stops. The game can still run and the sound effects will play. So this is the actual sound effects you should be able to hear in the final game without any interruption to the graphics. So I'm going to try and share the sound. Okay, I've turned it on. I'll just press the 1 key and just tell me if it comes through. Did that come through?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
Pretty clearly.
All right. Now, I'll turn my volume up so I can hear what the heck I'm playing to everyone. Now, the 1 key, it's a, I think it was a laser fire, and this is the enemy firing. No, hang on. No, this is a smart bomb. The first one is the smart bomb sound. So the game itself, you'll have a smart bomb feature, which you know, it won't be always active, but when you collect enough energy, you'll be able to fire off a smart bomb that goes and kills everything on the screen. So this is the sound effect for that. Yeah, so it sort of gives a bit of a sound effect of something charging up and then blowing a big burst of energy across the screen. So
neat.
Can you hear that clearly? I don't know how well this
sharing. No, that was pretty clear.
Yeah, so that's the smart bomb sound effect.
Yeah.
The next one, I can't remember. I think it's the alien fire. So when an enemy alien just flies around, is firing pellets at you. This is the sound for that, I think. Yeah. So it's a very quick, short laser burst type sound.
I can hear your voice fine, but I'm not getting any of this.
You're not hearing the audio?
I'm hearing it.
I'm hearing it.
I'm hearing it.
I'm hearing it.
Oh, okay. Turn your volume up, I guess, Barry. I don't know how loud it's coming through. Is it coming out loud, or very loud, or soft?
Loud enough.
Your voice is coming through fine. Your voice is coming through fine. I can hear your voice fine, but I'll be darned if I can make out sound effects in the background.
Okay, maybe it's something to do with the version of Skype. Anyway, the third sound effect, I can't even remember which one I put in there. Hang on, I'll just quickly fire it off. Oh yeah, that's just a simple beep. So yeah, I don't know where I'll throw that in somewhere. Sound number 4. Oh yeah, that's...
Ooh, explosion or laser shot or something.
Yeah, it's a laser shot. I haven't done this for a week now, so I've lost the order of what sound effects I put in there. But yeah, there's a laser shot, and I think that's there's actually, I think, 2 laser shots in there, and that's the short one. Sound effect number 5 is an explosion, I think.
That sounded like me earlier after Taco Bell today. So yeah.
You're oversharing again, Steve.
So we've got laser shots. And all these sound effects are 2 channels, so I can actually have 2 of them playing at once. Sound number 6. Oh, is an alarm. That's right. So when your energy is running low, I'll have an alarm go off in the background just to alert you that you're running low. So you get that sort of sound going.
That is really cool.
While the explosions and all that are happening. And I think sound number 7 is the actual firing of your spaceship. Does that sound like the laser shot? I think it does. It's very low, the volume on my end.
Try it again. Yeah, it sounds like a traditional gunshot.
Yeah,
sounds
so
like a pistol.
The one's going to be for your spaceship.
Okay.
And then, of course, when you blow something up, you get this. No, you get nothing. Okay, hang on. The sound of silence.
That's the silence mode.
So, yeah, that's the Simon and Garfunkel sound effect.
Yes.
Yeah, so I must have passed the explosion. I can't hear anything here, so I'm playing blind here.
Okay.
That must have been the explosion.
There you go. I just heard it.
Yeah, that's it. So, here I go. I'll simulate the game. Yeah, so anyway, that's it.
I'm doing sign language for those who are hearing impaired, so I'm going pew, 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 boom.
So that's the sound effects. No sound chip required.
Richard says, enough, take my money, please.
So that's a bit of a short preview.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Nick, how do you create your sounds?
Well, back in the old days, I used to actually use a program called Sound Studio on the color computer, and I would actually digitally sample them. So I'd have the sound effect that I would record from somewhere, and then I'd just record it with a microphone and all that. Nowadays, with the days of the internet, you just go on the net, you just grab a WAV file, and there's thousands of WAV files on the net. You just have to find the ones you want. And then I've just written a basic program on the color computer which will import those WAV files, and I can scale them down or whatever I need to do, and it plays them fine.
Oh yeah, it quite well does. Yeah. And that's really good. Yeah, there's so many advantages we have now. And I know you're a purist and you're doing a lot of this as old-fashioned as possible, but at least when it comes to some of your assets, to be able to pull some of that stuff off of the newfangled internet is a nice benefit, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, otherwise he has to go out and blow up stuff in his backyard. So
that's right. The neighbors were complaining, so
they call that Foley work, right? You just blow crap up with a microphone next to it.
Well, nowadays in the age of terrorism, that can get you in trouble. So yeah,
that's why Rick's still working on his sound effects too.
With our games like Bomb Threat and Bomb Squad. Nobody make a game for the CoCo called ISIS, so we're really going to be on somebody's radars. Now that's great, you know, and it's kind of cool because some of these things happened kind of like we didn't plan on hearing that today, but I'm glad that we did. And it just reminds me one time when I was doing a color computer marathon and I'm just playing a bunch of random games, and then Nick is watching and Nick joins the call and Nick's like, well, hey, by the way, would you like to take a look at Popstar Pilot, this game I'm working on? And we got to see like one of the first views of your game before it was even like a super well-known thing. You know, you kind of gave us a really cool behind-the-scenes look of that too. So it's kind of cool, some of these teasers that we're getting now on all these, you know, projects in development. It's really cool. I have time to do a quick shameless plug. I'm going to pull up my website here real quick because I have updated it. So I am trying to be a little bit more active with this. So I've switched my screen right now. And on my website, my main website is called ogsteviestro.com. I also created a fake name that's called imacoconut.com that takes you straight to this page here for color computer links. And I've updated this even as much as today. So I've got a bunch of different project websites here. So I've got some of the older projects like Firefall from John Linville. I've got a Jim Cox thing. I've got CoCo SDC, Tandy, CoCo Loco, RGB to VGA, the Zipster Zone, CoCo Boot, which is Brett Gordon's blog, Fusix from Brett Gordon, 8-Bit Coder Lee Patterson, John Strongware's on here, Nick Marentes' project site. I think Return to ROM is kind of on hold right now, but then there's CoCo VGAs here. I've got the Porting Pac-Man, and hopefully Glen's still with us if he's still awake. Forest of Doom I've added. Yeah, I've added DriveWire, and I just added Hugo's stuff too. So I'm trying to take one page and make it easy for people to find things for the color computer community. So I'm trying to make that kind of landing page, that launch page. So as I learn about new projects and I remember, I'll add them to that page too. So there's just so much stuff going on. How can anybody remember? Well, for this person, I got to go to this site, and for that person, I got to go to that site. So I'm trying to make it easy. And so if people are working on projects, if you just want to email me or reach out to me on Facebook or something, I'll be happy to link to your project sites and your blogs and everything else, your YouTube channel, whatever it is you want to promote for the color computer. I'll be happy to stick it on my page, no charge whatsoever, just to make sure that anybody who wants to find out about what's going on in the world of CoCo, you got an easy place to go to. Just go to imacoconut.com and boom, there you have it. So yeah, I just updated that just prior to this talk today too. So that's very cool, Nick. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. Since I have Glen here, Glen, is it okay if I pull up your Pac-Man video?
Sure.
Do you mind?
Share it with the world anyways.
We're going to share it with the world. So let me go back to full screen here. Hopefully you guys will be able to hear this. And so I'm going to try not to screw this up, Glenn, to introduce what you're working on. But you're basically taking, similar to what Sockmaster did when he ported Donkey Kong, you're porting Pac-Man. And when we talk about porting it, we're not talking about rewriting it. You're talking about translating the code to run as it ran on the original system to now run on a CoCo. Is that a fair explanation of?
Yeah, very accurate.
Okay, and again, to not be too technical because I'm a simple person, but the original Pac-Man ran on a processor known as the Z80, which is what the TRS-80 ran on. I think this was true for Donkey Kong as well. So I know enough about assembly to think I know that some of the phrasing is different for certain commands. So the command to do something on the Z80 might be a different command to do it on the 6809. And so some of it is like translating it from Z80 assembly to 6809 assembly. Some of the words are different. Some of the implementations implementations are different. So it's really a literal or as close to literal translation as possible, but the goal is the software is going to run in its native format. It's not going to know it's not on the old system. It's going to think it's running on a Z80, and we're going to get the real thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so I'm going to play this video here, which I looked at earlier today, which I thought was kind of cool. And we're seeing some of the work in progress. Now, one of the things it looks like, too, is that the vertical screen is now scrolling. Was I hallucinating, or did I actually see vertical scrolling?
Actually, that was planned pretty much from the beginning.
Okay.
Because the resolution on the CoCo can't match the rotated screen that the Pac-Man has. So I figured I either scale all the sprites down and fit them on the screen, or I try this scrolling routine. And since the hardware is built in the CoCo, it works out well. Almost, most of the maze can fit on the screen, and when a ghost gets to the upper half of the screen,
and here's
it
the sound.
scrolls up to see that.
So we've got the sirens playing in the background, and we got chomping playing in the foreground. Wow, that sounds really good. That sounds really good.
I don't think you got the sharing on, Steve.
Yeah, I'm not hearing the audio either.
Oh, I don't know if... Okay, so hold on one second.
Yeah, I got no audio either.
Well, it sounds fine to me, guys. I don't know what your problem is. That sounds like YP, not MP. Okay, I think... Sorry, I just... Let me try it again. I don't know how to fix this. Hold on. I'm not Skype literate either. Hold on one second. Let me go back to my CoCo call. Let's go to share system sound. Okay.
There we go.
There we go.
Hear it now.
You now hear it?
Yep.
Yeah.
So is this still running with the screen having to be turned sideways, or are you eventually going to rotate the fix?
No. You don't have to touch your monitor. That's just
Yeah, you're just using the vertical scrolling to adjust.
Yeah. So you got most of the menus on the screen.
So this is now rotated so that the graphics are on a normal screen. It just scrolls vertically a little bit while you're playing.
Right. Exactly.
That is very, very cool. I like that. And you've got a blog too where you're going over the project that you're working on. I've linked your blog on my page as well. I haven't blogged very much, and I haven't read that many blogs that much. I am going to try to keep up now with some of the current projects. I kind of missed Popstar Pilot as it's being developed. I was lucky enough to have access to Nick, so I could just hear it in his words and not have to do that reading thing that the kids are doing these days. But I am going to try to read some of these blogs now and stay current with this stuff, because it is interesting. It definitely is. And yeah, I mean, getting back into the CoCo has got me into things I never would have thought I've done before. Like, I never listened to a podcast before. Now I listen to the CoCo crew. I never read blogs before. Now I'm reading Nick's blogs, and I'll be reading more blogs. So probably be writing some blogs too when I start developing a few things. So it's cool, man. There's a ton of things going on. I want to also show just for briefly here. I wish Hugo could be here, but he mentioned he wasn't going to be able to make it. But I'm going to go back to the screen again. And again, this is a little bit of a teaser. Now, Glenn, you are doing a version of compiled sprites on your game?
Oh, yeah.
You doing? Yeah, okay. Yeah. So we've had that discussion, and we've kind of scratched the surface of that discussion. And it's probably worth just going back to again. Let me just bring up yours real quick again. And when we talk about what is a sprite, well, when we start playing the game here, we're going to see that, you know, Pac-Man is a sprite, and so are these ghosts. So Pac-Man, well, the Pac-Man, luckily for Pac-Man, it's okay for him to destroy things. But when it comes to the ghosts, they really can't destroy the dots behind them, right? So the ghosts are definitely sprites. And so you have to do some type of sorcery and science and black magic to make these foreground objects not destroy the background objects, right? And that's a discussion that's been going on for a while now.
With Pac-Man, it's kind of convenient. Like you say, the Pac-Man itself erases everything, but the ghosts, the actual game itself has this little map kind of thing where it keeps track of the dots that are eaten and not. Mm-hmm. So basically what I do is, okay, ghost is at a certain location on the screen. I access that map memory and say, is there still a dot there? Yes. Then make sure you redraw it when the ghost passes over it. So it's kind of like just a quick check that it has to do.
Okay.
So it is erasing them, when the ghosts draw over them, but as they move, it's like, check, was there a dot there? Yes. Was it a power pill? And draw a power pill back.
Okay. And so it's really only one of two objects that need to be replaced. So the bitmap is probably fairly consistent too.
Yeah.
And so that probably makes it easier to code for, I'd imagine.
Yeah. The only other thing is the fruit in the center to worry about.
So
it's
that's
pretty
your
much
wild card.
when the ghosts are at the center location of the screen, then I check, is there fruit on screen? Yes. Okay. We have to redraw that. But other than that, yeah, it's pretty much just the dots.
So is it safe to say that your implementation of sprites right now is kind of specialized to your application? It's not like a universal thing that this foreground can exist on any given background, or?
It seems like the more I get into these compiled sprites, it's more like, depends on what your game needs is the method that you'll use.
Okay.
So
yeah,
you really have to take that into effect or into account when you're working on them. Luckily with Pac-Man, it's an old game and the colors are nice and solid, so it gives me an opportunity to speed up the sprites a little bit more because I can just load my registers and just blast those colors all over the sprite at the same time before changing them. But if you have a complicated sprite with lots of different colors in it, like Nick's little spaceship there looks pretty complicated, so
right,
it'll be a little more instructions to update that on the screen as a compiled sprite.
Gotcha. Right.
Yeah, and same thing if you have a transparent sprite where you have parts where you got a hole in the middle of the spaceship or something where you can see the stuff underneath.
Yeah.
And I do apologize. There have been some people chatting that I haven't seen myself because I'm switching through so many screens. So Ed Snyder joined us recently. He said, "Oh, hey, it's me. Hello, Zipster Alert. You're here." Richard mentioned that he's got some 6309s for sale. Grant says, "Hi, Ed." Curtis is talking to Richard. Atari Leaf has joined us. Hey, hello, Atari Leaf. How are you? Great to see you. Pleasure to have you here. And so, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm like watching every screen except the one the chat is on, apparently. So I apologize for being a non-gracious host there. Very cool stuff. That's cool. So I'm going to switch over now to showing off one that is a little bit more complex as far as the level of foreground and background objects. And this is a project that Hugo Duforts has been working on. And Hugo's been with us on several calls in the past, but was not able to be here today. So this, and I remember him saying last week that he's kind of had to like tear this apart and rebuild it now. And so we're going to probably be looking at an older version of this, but this is a platformer game that he's been sharing the project with on Facebook. And we'll be able to see here in just a minute that you're going to have, this looks like a 16-bit game to me. This looks like a Super NES, Sega Genesis style game here. So this is before compiled sprites too, so you can see how laggy things are. This is very slow. You can see the animation cycles here. That boomerang is turning very slow. She is walking slow. She's falling slow, right? So this is kind of a before and after. And you can see there's a heart in the top right-hand corner that's kind of spinning around in circles too, and its animation is pretty slow as well. But, okay, now this is with compiled sprites. Now look how much faster she's running. She's running faster. The characters are moving faster. This is a complex foreground character with multicolored complex backgrounds here. And I know this is an older version of the program. I believe it's probably gotten more optimized by now. But quite frankly, that was pretty impressive what he just showed off there. And so again, this is people who are doing very clever things with software to reproduce what we don't have in hardware, which is real sprites, which is a foreground character that does not destroy the background. So for as many years as I've been playing CoCo games, I have appreciated the fact that people figured out how to do that, because without that, the games would pretty much suck. So that is just very cool stuff that we have going on there.
Yeah, Hugo's game's looking pretty cool.
Yeah. So the only other thing that I had on the menu to talk about would be whatever topics were, Curtis is beating on the keyboard, for example. But other things that might have come up on the Facebook group, I can pull up Facebook and we can cover some of those things there. But since I have some live human beings here in the call and some people here in chat, what other things in the world of CoCo would we like to talk about right now, gentlemen?
What options did people use back in the 80s and early 90s when they weren't using hard drives to get extra storage on floppies?
I used hole punchers to hack the double-sidedness of my floppies, and I would cut out a notch on the other side and punch another hole in the mouth center of it, and hack the floppy to be able to format both sides of it.
I think we've all tried that, Steve.
I have an interesting story to tell about that one. There was a friend of mine, actually, that was running a bulletin board off of floppy disks. And he did have double-sided 80-track drives, but he still needed more storage than the 3 drives he could get online off of the controller and software as it was. As it turns out, he was running the bulletin board on OS 9, and so we sat down, we brainstormed this, and I came up with the idea that, hey, there's 3 drive select lines. So right now we're only turning on 1 drive select line at a time, which gives you, 3 drives plus a side select. I thought, hey, in binary, if you've got 3 lines, you've got 8 possible combinations. So we came up with, we took the floppy cable and we inserted the device, the whole circuit in the floppy cable, that instead of having, expecting 1 drive select line to be on at a time, it sent out a binary code on the drive select lines, and then this device, the hardware that we put there, basically demultiplexed that to select 8 different floppy drives that were double-sided. And I wrote a custom disk driver for OS 9 to understand how to send out the code for the different drives.
I like that idea.
I'm
glad you understood something he just said there, because you lost me a long time ago. But that sounds impressive.
I had a custom piece of hardware and a custom device driver under OS 9, and we had 8 double-sided floppies running off of 1 single floppy controller.
Wow, that's impressive.
Ooh.
That's impressive. I just want to real quick acknowledge, too, that we just had the legendary Steve Bjork has just joined us on the text chat, and he says he can't join us on Skype right now. But talking about compiled sprites and pulling off miracles in software, we've got one of the best examples of doing that with us right now, watching us. So yeah, I do want to schedule a formal topic where we can talk about nothing but game techniques, sprites and scrolling and music and sound. I'd like to compile a panel of experts, of people who've done it in the past and who are doing it now, and what are some of the new techniques versus the old techniques, and let's show how some of the old games looked and worked, and let's look at some of the new things that are going on. I think it's a great topic, and again, I think it plays well to the video format if we can show video examples, kind of like the examples I just showed of Hugo's before and after compiled sprites and the speed benefits and things like that. I definitely want to do a gaming consortium, so to speak, at some point in time. We've got John Strong here who does that. We've got Nick here. We've got Rick Adams here who's doing that. So we have some leading experts who have done it in the past and who are doing it currently. I know this thing would be great to kind of show off what has been done and what we're looking at doing in the future. And that's just the greatest thing. For me, I've gotten back into the CoCo. It's been less than 2 years, and I've learned more in these past 2 years than I learned in the 6 years when I had an actual CoCo. I've learned more about the history of the CoCo. I've learned more about the present and the future of the CoCo. And so the things that are going on here with the Facebook group and with the mailing list and with getting together people like this, the actual brain power that's above me on this screen right now. I feel like an idiot on any normal day, but having all you guys above me now makes me feel like a major idiot. It's especially when Barry starts talking about, 8 double floppies and all this other kind of crap. It's like, hold on now, slow down now, son. So it's just like, you got to keep it simple for me. But yeah, it's impressive things that have been done and the things that are continuing to be done. That was a pretty good question there, David. And David, you know, I hate to compliment David Ladd if I can get away with it, but he's a fart smeller. You know what I mean? He knows a couple of things about a couple of things, and so it's definitely been helpful having David to help me figure out DriveWire and VCC and crap like that. So very cool stuff. Let's take a. So what else do you guys want to chat? While you guys are thinking about what you want to talk about, I'm going to pull up the Facebook page real quick, and we will look and see what's going on in the world of Facebook, the Color Computer Facebook page, which is also on my website if anybody's new to the community and you want to know what's going on in the world of color computers. So I'll scroll back to the top to see what some of the topics are here going on in Facebook. So Glen Hewlett posted his Pac-Man blog and his video, which we did just kind of show. There's been a lot of talk today about the closing of Radio Shack, probably the final closing of Radio Shack. And, you know, Radio Shack is the reason why we're all here today talking about the Color Computer, which was a Radio Shack product, you know. And Radio Shack, I don't think Radio Shack has been the Radio Shack it used to be probably since the 90s, but it still had the name Radio Shack. It was still a store. It's for me, like, I live in Florida, and not even an hour from me is this thing that's called the beach, right? And there's this thing that's called the outdoors and the sunshine. I don't go to it, but I'm glad to know that it's there. If all of a sudden the beach was gone, I would probably be remorseful. Like, oh, damn it, I wish I went to the beach at least once, you know? And Radio Shack has kind of been like that for me, too. I haven't stepped into a Radio Shack probably since the 90s because I haven't needed to. They haven't had anything cool. There hasn't been a Tandy computer there since the 90s, and that's the only reason why I went to Radio Shacks. I don't do transistors and things like that, so there's been no compelling reason for me to go to a Radio Shack. So even though I haven't stepped foot in one, I am sad to see that it is gone because it's an iconic part of history. If you guys have read Boise and Bill's book, you know, the Tandy legacy goes back to the 40s. Tandy products and Radio Shack products from the 70s through the 90s were, you know, blazing trails with technology and innovation, and the world changed and they couldn't keep up, and they became a cell phone store that sold a few doodads on the side, and they were they've kind of closed and reopened twice now. This is probably the final nail in the coffin, and it's a sad end to a legacy. But in any business today, I think it's really hard to compete with the internet. You know, I mean, I don't buy that many things in the store anymore because I go to the store to look and touch, and then I pull up my phone and see what I can get it for on Amazon. You know, I'm
not sure where to go if I need a soldering iron in a hurry now, though. It's
Fry's or Micro Center.
Yeah, so I don't know how many other... See, that's the thing. There is a convenience to walking into a place to grab something, either on impulse or when you need it. And so it's kind of like, you know, going to a gas station or a convenience store. When you need milk and you don't mind paying a couple extra bucks because you just have to have the milk, that's fine. But are you going to get your milk from the gas station every day? Probably not. And I think that's the challenge. Luckily, the gas station also sells gas, you know. But with Tandy, nobody's buying these soldering irons and things like that, and everybody's selling cell phones. You can't even compete in the cell phone space. So it just makes you wonder. You know, it is a sad end, but I think they died a long time ago, and we just now are realizing it. You know, it's just kind of final. I'm trying to shut up to give somebody else a chance to talk. And
I'm sorry, we all fell asleep, so we're just.
Yeah. Thank you, Curtis.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Thoughts on Radio Shack? Memories of Radio Shack? Since we're at its wake right now.
Yeah, it was a period of silence for the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think it's so much that, you know, people abandoned them; they abandoned their customer base.
Yeah, and the customer base shrank. I mean, there's not as many do-it-yourselfers anymore as there was back then either. So it's kind of a double thing.
Well, I think the do-it-yourselfers.
Do you remember their policy of every time you bought anything in there, including like a battery, they would say, you know, so what's your name?
Yeah.
What's your address?
The receipt.
What's your zip code? What's your, you know, And that really bugged the heck out of me, and I would like give them all kinds of resistance. It's like, I'm not going to tell you all that stuff, and they're like, well, okay. And one time I talked to a Radio Shack store manager, and he said, look, let me explain it to you. We have to ask you, but you don't have to answer. So if you don't, I'm okay with that. But, I just want to let you know I have to ask that stuff of you. And so then it was like, okay, that makes perfect sense. So then I'd be in line behind somebody that's buying some 9-volt battery, and they're like, what's your name? What is your, and it's like
name, rank, serial number.
A name, rank, and serial number for a 9-volt battery you're buying with like a greenback. And so I leaned over and I sort of looked at them and I said, you don't need to see his identification. And they looked at me like, oh my God, we've got a crazy person in the store.
Well, if you had the robe, you could have been the full Ben Kenobi right there.
And then I said, these aren't the droids you're looking for. He can go about his business. And then they looked at me and they said, and then you could see that they got all relieved because it's like, oh, we don't have a crazy psycho person that might whip out a knife at any moment and start smashing things. We just have somebody that's telling a really, really bad nerd joke. Okay, we can deal with that.
There was also another problem with Radio Shack. Is what I hated is every time you go in there, they always try to upsell you with something else or with another product. I'm going in there for a couple of batteries and stuff like that, and they're trying to sell me a cell phone or something else. I'm like, I'm not interested in any of that stuff.
Yeah, well, I can tell you there's two reasons for that, because I did work in Radio Shack like I think a lot of us did too, right? So why do we ask for your name every single time? Because they want to mail you a catalog. They want a mailing list. They were a catalog business as well, or at least using the catalog to get people into the stores. And why do we want to upsell you? Because as a salesperson, you also got a commission on everything you sold too. And so I don't think
commissions and spiffs and stuff like
commissions and spiffs. Yeah, there was the crap of the week, the crap du jour that they're trying to get rid of, and so there were spiffs on that. I was probably unique as far as salespeople go, but probably not unique when it comes to Radio Shack history. But, I was the kid who hung out there since I was 12 years old. I was at the same local store every single day. I had to wait till I was 18 or 19 where I could be old enough to be hired there. But when I got hired, I was the local computer expert, because I had used the TRS-80, I'd used the CoCo, and I was now familiar with the Tandy 1000. So I was able to sell the computers because I knew how to speak about them. I wasn't a quote-unquote salesperson that could sell anything, but if you had a question about one of our computers, I could answer all of your questions and demonstrate what the product could do, and that was how I was able to be successful as a computer salesperson. And I wasn't that pushy salesperson that upsold you. I was just like, hey, this is what it does, take it or leave it, and I did pretty well as a 19-year-old at Radio Shack, selling computers as I was going to college, so
I started out with Radio Shack. Steve. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I started out with Radio Shack. I actually worked in I worked at Tandy Computer Assembly, and then I moved into the repair section or side of Tandy behind one of the computer stores, and then I was a repair manager.
Yeah, that's impressive. See, I was not into hardware at all in the 80s. I'm into hardware now as far as modern PCs go. When your hard drive dies, you replace the hard drive, you replace the RAM chip, you replace the graphics card. That's my level of component work, So I appreciate people who know how to use a soldering iron and know how to do these things. I never learned that then. It was a huge mystery to me as a kid. Matter of fact, it took a game like Donkey King for me to let somebody work on my CoCo and upgrade the RAM, because I was afraid. Like, oh my God, I don't know. You're a stranger. You're not Radio Shack. You're my friend's dad, but I want to play Donkey King real bad, so do it. But before then, I was so mystified by hardware. And as a matter of fact, I was probably too afraid to watch the operation. I probably had to wait for it to be done.
Yeah. I used to stay away from software a lot because I had bad memories of that, especially when I had my CoCo. I stayed away from OS 9 for quite a while because
I still do.
Yeah, well, we used to work on Xenix, if people remember that operating system, and it was such a nightmare.
I remember that.
Oh, it was awful. And so, when I saw OS 9 and said, it's just like Xenix, and I was like, oh no, I am not going to touch
Wrong
it.
thing to say, huh?
So for years, I didn't even use OS 9 until I picked up the book from Dale Puckett, the complete Rainbow Guide to OS 9. Started reading it and really learned just how powerful OS 9 really is. And that's how I got, really into OS 9.
Wow.
Yeah, I got out of it.
Well, it's funny. I remember, and I'm glad that Steve Bjork is here. I remember coming across an article a long time ago I found on the internet where he had mentioned something about a story where understanding how hardware and software both worked was helpful for him in the good old days. I believe it was, and I don't remember the exact example, but it had something to do with like a mainframe system where there would be one person that would have to come in to work on the hardware, and a different day another person came in to work on the software, and it wasn't until these two guys got together that they actually figured out what the problem was. And understanding both sides of the house definitely has its benefits. And I believe that's probably more true now with how modern systems are much more complex than it was back then. But I think it's a great thing to know both. I knew BASIC, and I knew how to use software, and I knew how to dabble in BASIC, but I never understood hardware to the level that I'm sure most of you guys here now know that kind of stuff. And it's something I'll probably get a little bit more into now that I'm working on becoming a grown-up. And so it's interesting. It's definitely interesting.
I know that really worked really well for Bill and me back in the Nitrous 9 days, like when he was making some of the custom boards for work, because I was much more software. He's much more, more brilliant with the hardware stuff. He's pretty good at the software too, obviously. But having the two of us, kind of handling the different sides of the project actually made it a lot easier. We could catch each other's, little bugs and stuff a lot faster than if we're just doing it ourselves.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, like the picture you put on Facebook where you sent him your CoCo 3 with your no-cam memory board and he found the bent pin, and it's like when you hear the term easy and common sense, it's such a relative term to what you know what I mean? And somebody can sit, you can sit here and listen to you guys talk about OS 9 and loading and unloading modules. Oh, it's real easy. All you gotta do is unload a module. And here I am saying, well, what the hell's a module? You know what I mean? So it's all kind of relative to what people know. Common sense is the greatest paradox there is, and so I think I have hopefully the capacity to understand soldering and circuitry better now with the benefit of age and stuff, but it was a complete mystery to me in my youth. It's cool stuff. I don't know that I would ever develop anything like a CoCo SDC or anything to that level, but I wouldn't mind knowing how to change out a CPU in my CoCo, do a RAM upgrade or something like that, you know what I mean? I'd like to know it to at least a small utilitarian level for my own satisfaction.
Yeah, and you're correct. I mean, it's whatever your expertise is, whatever you're comfortable with. I mean, I take a look at some of these modern Xbox games with 5 bazillion buttons to hit, and I can't figure that stuff out, and you have no problem with it. So.
But I can't figure out how to play Rescue on Fractalus. I'm sorry, Bill.
Oh, I just said I'm one of them, too. I can't figure out those 5 million buttons on the new games now.
Right, I know the ongoing joke in the arcades back when Defender first came out, because it had, 7 buttons or 6 buttons? one of the video game magazines would mention you've got thrust, you've got fire, you've got smart bomb, ring the butler, windshield wipers, and they just kept going on and on with these made-up buttons, because that's how complicated it seemed when you're used to, Pac-Man with just a joystick.
Right, just a joystick, or just a button. You had just the fire button, or just the jump button, 4-direction stick and 1 button. Keep it simple, stupid,
Works for me. I'm stupid. So.
Oh my goodness, that's cool. Oh, so what else we want to talk about here today, boys and girls? It's been a good talk. We're coming close to the 2-hour mark too, which has been roughly how long these talks have run in each week. We don't want to, we don't want to kill the audience. So.
Oh, why not? I think the standard podcast goes for 3-4 hours
4 hours
now?
Yeah, but it's 4 hours a month. We're doing 2 hours a week, Yeah.
Yeah, but you can fast forward the podcast,
True.
Ooh.
Well, you can fast forward these too if you watch it after the fact.
Other Radio Shack memories. I don't know if everybody got a chance to chime in on your memories and stories and stuff as we mourned.
This is Bruce here. The Battery of the Month Club. That was really cool when I was in grade 7.
That was. It was, yeah, that was, you know, and because I did this in Miami and kind of North Dade County. We were close to a lot of seniors in Miami, go figure, right? And so you always had the quote unquote old people that would come by once a month with their little punch card to get their one free battery. And that's all they did. They came in, they got their battery, and they left. You know, and that was one of my memories. And like when we're closing our stores, you know, we have posted store hours and we're ready to close, and you got somebody like at 5 minutes to closing time saying, "I just need to get my battery," coming in with their battery cards.
Might have been for their old pacemakers or hearing aids or something. I don't know.
And it was the crappy ones. It was the red batteries. We had like 3 shades of battery. You had the cheap ghetto welfare red batteries, and then there was the middle class green battery,
alkaline,
and then there was the upper echelon gold batteries. You know? And so it was that was a fond memory, the battery. And welcome, Bruce. Thanks for joining us.
You know, thanks. You know, when I was 12 and I had 0 income, the battery of the month, that was gold. You know, that was expensive. It was it.
You know, you could have had a little scalping business where you got your battery and sold it to old people in the parking lot.
We had to power those old Mattel football games and stuff, those little handhelds. So.
Oh, when I was a teenager, I was there every month. I want my battery.
On the subject of hardware, Steve Bjork in the chat was saying that I'm still designing hardware along with the software to run on it. And then Grant Leedy says we should do a 24-hour podcast. And then Steve says, besides ARM and PIC, I work with Raspberry Pi, Arduino, and Project PC boards using, I can't say this word here, pickaxe chips for the home and small haunters. And I think one of the CoCo Crew podcasts had mentioned something where John Linville had come across an article where he saw the name Steve Bjork, and it was something to do with a Halloween-based multimedia project. I don't remember all the details. I'd have to go back and read that. But I think John had come across something and was wondering, is this our same Steve Bjork? And chances are it might be. So it had something to do with a Halloween display and graphics, and it sounds like something that Rick Adams is now doing too with his Raspberry Pi displays and everything else. Yeah, I find that stuff neat. I still have some of my bad habits that I had when I was a kid, which is if I don't understand something, I choose to not even try to embrace it. And the Raspberry Pi has been one of those things. I don't understand the Raspberry Pi. Again, is it simple? Is it easy? It's all relative. But what's going to make me want the Raspberry Pi now is the fact that we can run a CoCo on the Raspberry Pi. So I'm probably going to order mine next week, and it's going to become my little portable CoCo. And that'll at least get my toes dipped into the water, and then maybe I'll start doing something else with it too. So I love seeing that people are doing all kinds of things with Raspberry Pis besides your, what's it called, the Retro Pi, where it emulates all the old game systems. And now we have the CoCo Pi that Ron Klein is kind of spearheading that distribution. Haunted Hackers is what it's called. Okay, thanks, Steve. Is it hauntedhackers.com? Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. And if we can, I will definitely pull that up. Hold on one second here. Is it hauntedhackers.com? No,
haunted, just haunt.
Haunt Hackers. Haunthackers.com. See, I can't read or spell either. H-A-U-N-T hackers. Haunthackers.com. Okay, it's coming up. Let me switch over real quick, and we will show that off here real quick. Let me move this over so I can see what I'm doing, so I don't get the infinity display. Okay. Here we have Haunt Hackers. I don't remember if I'm still sharing audio with you guys. We'll find out here in just a second. Okay, so it's Haunt Hackers. We bring the haunt to life. Welcome to Haunt Hackers. There we go. So this is the same Steve Bjork, designer and programmer. Oh, this is very cool. The new series of controllers from Haunt Hackers. Okay, Banshee, the Super Pro controller. Banshee Junior. Okay, Banshee boards are available. Oh, look at this. We have soldering irons. Is there any videos here? Okay, so what is this called here? Please visit, am I saying this right? Is it pickaxe.com? Or maybe it's pronounced a different way that I'm butchering. That's coming up as bad requests. Because there's a period at the end. Let me get rid of that period. Okay, here we go. This is a website where you can get serial MP3 players. Okay. Well, I just found a bad link here in your website. You might want to fix that. There's a dot at the end of the .com there that prevented that link from working. Why do we use Pickaxe microcontrollers? Okay, so that's talking about the controllers. Are there any videos in here? Welcome information. Let's see. Hot picks. Okay, these are looking at projectors. Okay, this looks like some very cool multimedia displays. Okay, here we go. Photo albums and videos. Here are some videos. Let's see if we can. Here we go. Here's a video. Tell me if you guys can hear the sound. Let me just pull up Skype here real quick. Let me make sure that in my Skype call I'm still sharing my system audio. No, okay, system sound is still here. Okay, so here we go. Tell me if you guys can hear it. Okay, so this is an example. 3-axis skull with jaw sync. This might have been what John Linville was talking about on one of the podcasts.
Welcome. We have been expecting you.
Can you guys hear it?
Oh, yeah. That's funny.
Brave travelers. Few have dared to venture so far into the realms of night. Here, in the twilight, between the world of the living and the world of the dead. For these few nights each year, the veil is torn aside, and that which walks in darkness spills through to your world. Beware. For this night, the shadows have power in your dimension, and they are hungry.
That is cool.
Oh, that's great.
For the non-programmers out there, this is what debugging's like.
Yep. Let's try this one here. This is cool, man. Singing skulls.
Little Oscar here wants a story. A real scary story? All right then. An old cowpoke went riding out one dark and windy day.
That's cool.
On a ridge and rested as he went along his way. Well, somebody heard over that cows he saw.
That is pretty cool. They're even synchronized and singing harmonies and all kinds of stuff. That's cool stuff. That's super cool. That's a neat project. Yeah, so hopefully one day we can get an interview with Mr. Bjork and we can talk about these projects too. That'd be kind of cool. That's cool, man. I really like that.
He used to be involved with Disney somewhat too, if I remember.
Oh, yeah?
Talking to him and Alan Huffman about it, because Alan's a big Disney fan too.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. As you talk, I'm working on the new Banshee Junior PC board. That's cool. That's funny too, because I think John had also mentioned that when he mentioned it in the podcast, because you saw the word Audio Spectrum Analyzer too, which was one of the first programs made for the CoCo too that Steve made that showed the bar graphs and was on Revenge of the Nerds and stuff like that. So I guess it's really cool to understand hardware and circuitry and music and software. I mean, the more of these things you understand and that you can incorporate into your projects, obviously you can do things like animated skulls and stuff like that. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so there's never been a better time to be in technology, it seems like, because we have access to so many things. If something doesn't exist, we can almost create it with 3D printing. And if a processor doesn't exist, then we can't get that. We can create these microcontrollers to simulate processors and circuits that don't exist anymore, or create new circuits that we need. And so it's, when it comes to technology, it's like we have advanced to the point where, you know, Judgment Day is not far from being here, where the machines are going to be making machines, and the machines are going to view us as a threat, and the whole 9 yards, you know. So it's so cool what can be done for the people who know how to do it. And then there's guys like me who play 35-year-old games, you know, so very badly, I must say, too. So that is very, very cool. Yeah. It says, Steve says, I cannot talk about my day job. Okay, that's fine. I mean, that must be classified. So
maybe Steve can talk about his day job from 30 years ago.
Yes, we'd love to hear about the day job of making games like Zaxxon and everything else. Very cool stuff. Any other Radio Shack memories you guys want to share? Anything else as we get ready to wrap up this CoCo Talk? Did I hit all the notes I wanted to hit on the things I wanted to talk about in my agenda? I think I did. We covered Gun Star. We covered Hugo's blog. We got to look at Glen's Pac-Man port in progress. We did kind of skim through the Facebook page. We got a bonus peek at some of Steve Bjork's projects, which is pretty cool. I think we covered a lot in this week's talk, and the nice thing is that there's no shortage of people who want to talk about the CoCo, and there doesn't even seem to be a shortage of people who want to listen to people talking about the CoCo. So last week's CoCo Talk got something like 160 or 180 views. Probably one of the more viewed ones. You know, we've only been doing this about, 8 or 9 weeks now, and so maybe it's picking up steam. But to me, it blows my mind where, I'll do a 20-minute video on Minecraft, which is a current popular thing, and that Minecraft video will get maybe 20 or 30 views. And here you have a bunch of, pardon the phrase here, but old guys talking about an old computer, and almost 200 people want to watch that crap. So I go figure, right? You know what I mean? The CoCo Crew podcast, God bless them, they get 1,000 listens on downloads every single month, So retro is the new hip thing, I guess I'm thankful. If it wasn't for meeting the color computer community, I don't even think my YouTube channel would be a thing. I mean, if it wasn't for the CoCo, I wouldn't have gotten into computers. I know that's not a new story. I wouldn't have gotten into computer technology. If it wasn't for CoCo videos, I don't think my YouTube channel would even be a thing. I wouldn't have not met all these people here and gone to CoCo Fest and found out about all these things that are still going on. So, yay, CoCo! And a moment of silent meditation for the passing of Radio Shack.
On the
silent meditation. Shh.
Well, I gave it a moment.
Go ahead.
On the plus side, there's a lot of downside. I definitely miss having the Radio Shack stores. But on the plus side, with the demise of Radio Shack as a corporation, I've been following the rights from the copyrights to the ROMs for the color computer and the other machines that Tandy produced. And with the closing of the Radio Shack Corp, the rights for the ROMs fall back to a particular individual who is an investor, who have been able to look up his information.
Okay.
So I'm trying to get in touch with him to see if we can get the rights for those ROMs released, so that we public access to those legal public access to those ROM images. I was successful at doing this before Steve Jobs passed away. May he rest in peace. I was able to get in contact with him and Apple, and they released all the ROMs for the Apple One and.
You're breaking up on this again, Barry. Well, well, you're breaking up, Barry. But I mean, this sounds like this.
etc.
Okay, you're back. We lost you for a second. This sounds like it's a great thing to be hopeful for, but I would imagine that because Microsoft was involved in the basic ROMs and that they licensed it to Tandy, I would imagine because it was licensed that technically the software still belongs to Microsoft, and regardless of who owns some of the things, I would think Microsoft probably still has a say in that. Just like the color computer software, basically the copyrights belong to the authors, even though they were licensed to Tandy. Yeah. I would imagine BASIC has a similar thing.
Tandy fee that they had to pay that was ongoing. I don't know if you can hear me now. I said Tandy had distribution rights, and they didn't have a licensing fee that they had to pay per instance. So that makes it possible for them to authorize distribution of the ROMs.
Yeah, I mean, I hope, like I say, I'm optimistic, and I don't want to rain on the parade, but I'm hoping that the big corporate giant like Microsoft wouldn't get in the way with that, and there's some unforeseen legality that might prevent that from becoming a reality. But yeah, fingers crossed when it comes to that. I mean, because even now, like the Raspberry Pi project, where the image, you can download the image from my website. I'm hosting a copy, Rick's hosting a copy, which I'm also linking to, and Simon Jonason's hosting a European copy. The ROMs are not being distributed because it's being distributed with MAME, and part of the agreement of MAME is to not distribute MAME with any copyrighted content. And so when you download Raspberry Pi, you've got to go get the ROMs somewhere to honor the process of MAME and open source and copyright respect and all that kind of stuff, which I agree with, but it's a hurdle that would be nice that we can officially get rid of at some point in time. It would be a huge windfall if Microsoft would just say, you know, let the people have the 35-year-old ROMs, and then we can roll out the CoCo as that CoCo abstraction layer, and we can virtualize it on everything and run CoCo on a frickin' flash drive and on a Raspberry Pi and on a smart TV, and just have CoCo everywhere you go. Have CoCo on your keychain, have a heads-up display in your vehicle, and be running OS 9 as you're driving down the street. You know, you name it. That would be a great thing to have.
The thing is, Microsoft actually does not own the distribution rights because there was an agreement between Microsoft and Tandy Corp, and Tandy contributed and modified the code. So,
well, like I said, it would be great if this, you know, keep your fingers crossed and hope that it becomes public domain, and that would be great. It would be a great victory for being able to officially release, you know, a CoCo platform, so to speak, legitimately.
I've been successful with the Apple II, asking for, the old Italian saying "no yota no mama." So I called up and I asked.
What'd you say about my mama?
And I've been successful with the Apple II, the old Apple II ROMs, and I've been successful with also the TI Texas Instruments, which TI is still in business, and I was able to contact the appropriate departments at TI. And they said that they had already granted rights, and that they could, and that a certain individual could, I forget what it's a Harmless Lion is the website, or his handle, whatever, but that you could redistribute it. He was distributing it from his website, and that anybody else could redistribute it as well. So the TI stuff is currently available to be openly distributed.
Okay.
Per TI's legal department. And there's a couple others that are not as popular or well known that I've also been able to contact and get permissions to redistribute the ROM images and software. So
right. Well, I mean, I'm optimistic. It would be great if it can happen, and I appreciate somebody taking the lead on that and trying to make that happen. It'd be a huge victory for us, you know.
Steve, I'm trying, you know, it all depends if I can get a response. Basically, come down to one person now that. And all of this has reverted back to him because of the closing of the company.
Yeah. So, very cool. Very cool. Well, keep us posted on that and let us know how that goes. So, just two more things. And so, Barry, maybe at some point in time we can get you to do a demonstration with us on the CoCo Flash, because it's something much like the CoCo SDC, I knew a little bit about it. I've learned more about the CoCo SDC when we released that video this week that David Ladd also helped me with, where we updated the firmware and we added the CoCo Explorer. We have actually got to do an update to that because I figured out a way to make that a little bit better. I would love to do a demo at some point in time on the CoCo Flash as well. I don't know if you can screen share that or something, or maybe David can or something, but I'd love to see that more in action because I haven't seen it enough to understand it, but it's another good product that's probably worthy of showcasing in the future on a future talk. So I'll just plant that seed and let it germinate.
Screen sharing is problematic because it only runs on the actual color computer hardware, and unlike you, I have limited video capture equipment.
Yes, yeah.
So sharing a screen from it is problematic. What I had done when I made a previous video, which may work out, is I mounted a camera. I do have good camera equipment, So I mounted a camera on a tripod, and being that my screen that I'm usually using is a 65-inch flat screen display, it worked out fairly well actually just filming the display with the camera mounted on a tripod so that it was steady.
Okay, well, we'll figure it out. It's something I'd like to see myself. I'm sure other people are interested in seeing it because we've now demonstrated this is a cool new feature of the CoCo SDC where you can boot into this menu-based system, which makes it so much more usable. There's more about the SDC I need to learn and would like to demonstrate as well too. Like, I've never used the SDC to do anything with a hard drive. I've never done anything with a hard drive on the CoCo in my life. So I'd like to learn how to do CoCo hard drive stuff, which will lead into Nitrous 9, OS 9, things like that. So we've got plenty more to talk about, plenty more things to demonstrate, as well as other things that will come up during the week. I know I want to get more into compiled sprites and a whole gaming consortium. I'd love to get some more of that and maybe have those be ongoing. We can continue to have project updates because there's always a project going. Need to get Ed Snyder on here one day, Mr. Hardware himself, and just do an Ed Snyder expose and just talk about everything he's done, past, present, and future. There is no shortage of content for us to continue to blab about on a weekly basis. So the show I like to call a bunch of old guys talking about old stuff, aka CoCo Talk. We'll probably wrap it up unless you guys have any closing remarks, comments, things you want to plug or mention, or ideas for next week's talk.
Do you have a charger cable?
No.
Nothing specific.
The only thing I think I can mention is I do have a lot of 6309s available if anybody wants them too.
Okay, Richard has some too, I believe. So yeah, put me down for a couple. I definitely want to get a couple of 6309s with sockets, and these are going to be projects that I want to do at some point in time. I am not going to work on a living CoCo, but I will learn how to cut the legs off of chips and solder and desolder before I practice on a live patient. So I'll find one of those eBay for parts deals at some point in time and to take one of these no-risk cadavers and see what I can do with it.
You can test it on your Windows 10 machine.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm not doing it.
Okay, Richard says for a small fee, I will install too. Yeah.
In order to install 309, it's a CPU replacement.
Yeah.
It's an upgraded CPU for the color computer, but the color computer does not have CPU socketed. So
are you talking to us, Richard?
Install it.
Barry, are you talking to us or somebody else?
No, it's somebody else.
Talking to somebody else, but it's actually relevant. So I'll go ahead and.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I was trying to pick up the context because it seemed like a sidebar conversation. Yeah.
In order to install a 6309, you have to. The color computer's main CPU, the upgrade, is not socketed, so you actually have to take and cut all the leads off of the existing CPU to avoid damaging the color computer motherboard, and then desolder pins.
I have a quick dumb question about that because I'm used to kind of ghetto hacking things. Oh, he's still talking. I lost him.
Yeah, he's having bandwidth issues again, it sounds like.
All right.
It depends on which CoCo you're talking about. Some of the older CoCo 1s had the socketed CPU. Some of the older CoCo 2s also were socketed, but the newer versions, they had soldered them in to cut costs, and the CoCo 3, all of those were soldered in there. And usually when I try to desolder them, the fastest way is go ahead and clip the leads off of there. But since I've been soldering for almost 30 years, I can actually extract those CPUs out without cutting the leads off of them. It takes a little time, but I can do that.
So here's a dumb question. This is just my ghetto mentality. What happens if you just cut the CPU off the legs and you still have the legs there? Could you just kind of ghetto solder the frickin' socket on top of those legs and just have it be a raised socket? Or is that just not electrically not going to work, or just stability-wise not a good thing to do?
it's not a good stability practice because you might be able to. What could happen is that socket or the chip not be correctly in place, and over the long run, it could cause a short, something like that. So yeah, it's best to put a socket in there. So if you want to change the CPU out, it's much easier to repair or, to replace.
Yes. Yeah. No, 100% completely agree. I was just trying to see if there's a way I could fast track it and be lazy like I do with most things in life. But yeah, sounds like not the case. So. All right. Very cool stuff. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this CoCo talk. It has only been, almost 2.5 hours now. But yeah, it never gets old for me. I could personally never get tired of listening to people talk about the CoCo. But we'll try to keep a reasonable time frame on these episodes and save something for next week. I want to thank everybody who watched us. I want to thank, let's just go back to the top of the list because we had a bunch of people with us here. We had Michael Brandt in here. We had Paul Paco in here. We had Jimmy Alvarez stop by. Grant Leedy has been here. Boyson Tech, who happens to be Richard, who's here with us, is here. Solstice stopped by. Ed Snyder stopped by. Who else was here? Atari Leaf, all the way from Canada, was here. Steve Bjork has joined us. I think Steve is still with us. Who else was in this call? So we had a bunch of people chatting with us today too, which I appreciate. That's the one thing I like about this format is it is a little bit more real time and a little bit more interactive than having to wait a month for the podcast. I love the podcast. The only thing I don't love about the podcast is having to wait a month to hear another one. So if I can hear people talking about the CoCo on a more frequent basis, I'm always glad to be part of that conversation. So on behalf of my panel of beautiful human beings here, Nick Marentes, Rick Adams, Bill Noble, Bruce Moore, Glenn Hewlett, Curtis Boyle, even David Ladd, Barry Nelson, God bless you, Richard, help me not screw up your last name.
It's Lore Bieski.
Lore Bieski was here for a little while. We had Neil Blanchard. We had Cocoa Beach was here. John Strong was here. We had a bunch of people here from time to time, and I appreciate everybody coming out each week. We had our buddy from England was here, Rick. I can't remember his name right now. I'm old. I forget things. It's okay. But yeah, it's been a great talk. Again, I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank everybody who watched this live, and I'm sure more people will be catching it later who couldn't be here live, who had a life or whatever other obligation. And that's it, man. Thank you guys. And for anybody who's watching this now or in the future, if you have something you would like to talk about or have be spoken about, let us know. Leave a comment or reach out to me through email or on the Facebook group or on the CoCo mailing list. Anything you want to talk about, if you got a project you're working on and you want to demonstrate something you're working on, we'd love to show it off. Love to see it, hear it, smell it, touch it, taste it. If you got a website you want me to plug and it's related to the CoCo or just anything cool technology-wise, let me know. I'll stick you on my links page. No charge to do that. And anything we can do to give us more reasons to talk about the CoCo, let us know because we love doing that. Thanks, guys. We're going to wrap up this episode. And I just want to say rest in peace, Radio Shack.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Next week, same time, same channel. We'll be here in Assembly and in Basic 09, maybe in 4th, maybe in C. We'll be here next week, same time, same channel. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
All right.